Hi, grade 8. This is the math video for the Chapter 2 Study Guide and Review found on page 90, 91, and 92. To start off with, let's look at numbers 1 through 7. I'm going to do the first one for you. It says a or n blank is a number that's less than 0. Boy, that's pretty easy, isn't it? I hope. It's on the left side of 0. All of those numbers are called negative numbers. And that's the answer, negative number. Negative number. So fill in the blanks, and then let's move on to 8 through 11. 8 through 11. Remember, when we talk about 8 through 11, you need to remember that the number that's further to the left is actually the smaller number in this situation. So for example, if I write on the board negative 24 and I write on the board 2 and I ask you to tell me what sign goes here, I would ask this question of myself. I would say, is negative 24 less than 2? Is negative 24 greater than 2? Is negative 24 equals to 2? To try to think through what I'm talking about. And the answer is, it's less than 2. It's less than 2. So let's look at, how about problem number 8? Problem number 8. 8 and negative 8. What sign are we going to use here? 8 is greater than this, 8 is less than this, or 8 is equal to this? Well, in this case, it's greater than. Now, it would be different if, let's say, I had absolute value symbols. If I was using absolute value symbols, then the answer would be equals, wouldn't it? But we don't have those. So the answer is greater than. Let's look at 12 through 15. 12 through 15. Just want to remind you how to do problem 15. And remember that when you're faced with a situation like this plus this, first of all, we got to know how to read it. How do we read this equation? This is the absolute value of negative 8 plus the absolute value of negative 14. And what do we do with that? Well, in this case, since it's arranged in this pattern, we figure out the absolute values first, and then we do the adding. So, if I had, say, for example, the absolute value of 7 plus the absolute value of negative 21, I would go like this, and the final answer would be 28. Okay. Look at 14 and compare it to 12. Are they trying to trick you? 14 compared to 12? I don't think so, but let's review that concept. If I have, say, for example, the absolute value of negative 10, the answer to that is 10 because this number is 10 steps away from 0, and that's what absolute value means, the amount of steps away from 0. But if I have something like this, or if I have something like this, the answer may or may not be different. Let's start with this one. Think about everything except that minus sign or that negative sign or that opposite of sign that I'm covering up with my hand right now. What would be the absolute value of 10? 10. Now ask the question, what is the opposite of 10? And the opposite of 10 is negative 10. So in this case, the answer is negative 10. But what about here? Figure out what this equals. That's 10. And then ask the question, what's the opposite of what you just figured out? And the opposite of what you just figured out is still negative 10. So notice the difference in how you solve these. Okay, let's go to 16 through 21. I'm going to do 20 with you right now, 20. Don't forget to review the adding rules of integers if you forget how to do that. 6 plus negative 9 plus negative 8. We'd start with these two numbers because we're working left to right according to the orders of operation. And in this case, it would be negative 3. Negative 3 plus the negative 8 would be negative 11. So that is problem 20. Right? Here we'd have the three-step rule, and then here we just add them because they both have negative values. Remember the different rules when it comes to adding integers. How about subtracting integers? Do you remember those rules? I'm going to do how about number 28? Negative 3 minus a negative 7. To subtract, what do? To subtract, we add. What do we add? We add the opposite of that second number, or, as the book says, we add the additive inverse of the second number. And so that would give us this problem, which is adding of a negative to a positive. So that's the three-step rule. And if we do the work, we get an answer of 4 there for a problem. What problem is that again? That was problem, I don't remember which one. Actually, it's 28. That was 28 on the board there. Okay. Turn the page. Multiplying integers. Those rules are different than the adding and subtracting rules, right? If all the two signs are the same, the answer is always positive. If the two signs are different, the answer is always negative. Keep those rules in mind. So, for example, a negative 5 times a positive 4 has to be a negative 20, because negative 5 and positive 4 have different signs. So, pick one, Joel. How about problem number 32? 32 says negative 4 times negative 7. The signs are the same, so it's got to be a positive 28. Right? Okay. Also, what about those ones that have variables in them? Do you remember how to do those? If I wrote on the board negative 4x times the quantity of 5d, what would you do with that? Negative 4 of x times 5d, or in other words, negative 4 times x times 5 times d, right? So we can think about this as a spread out version of multiplication. And what I told you to do was to deal with the numbers first, then the variables, and put the variables in order alphabetically. So, negative 4 times 5, negative 20, times the d, times the x. Done. Done. Oh, how about division? Well, that shouldn't be any big deal. Division is the same rules as multiplication. So let's say I had negative 30 divided by a positive 5. The signs are different. Negative, positive, negative, positive. So that tells me my answer has to be negative, and in this case, negative 6. Do you remember how to find average or mean? Hopefully you do. They have a problem in number 39 where they want you to find the average of some numbers. Let's try one similar to number 39, but not exactly like it. What if I had negative 7, and I had negative 2, and I had 0, and I had 5, and I had 10? And somebody said, find the average or find the mean of those numbers. First thing I got to do is add them up. This plus this is negative 9. Negative 9 plus 0 is 0. Negative 9 plus 5 is negative 4. And negative 4 plus 10 is a positive 6. So these numbers add up to make 6. Now I'm going to divide by the amount of pieces of data. In this case, there's 5 pieces of data, and it goes into it once. Going to have a decimal point, bring down a 0, goes into it twice. Done. The average of these numbers is 1.2. Coordinate grid system at the bottom. Be careful. It says graph, label, and then name the quadrants. So don't forget to do all three things. Graph it, label it with a letter when you graph that point, and then tell me if it's in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, thank you.